So let's go to some of the guys that OU is recruiting heavily on the defensive side of the ball then. Specifically Christian Leary, Kendall Daniels, and the like in that safety region. One of the things I do want to address before we get to those is where are the defensive tackles, right? It's the question that we get asked all the time. So now that I have posed that perfunctory question to you, Colin, do you have an answer? Because my answer is always going to be the same.
Well, so ask the question one more time, because I'm going to try and formulate a way to put this in my best words.
Okay. Where are the defensive tackles in OU's 2021 recruiting class?
They're not there. I'm sorry. I wanted to buy myself some time, but they're just not there. And they ain't coming anytime soon. I'm sorry. It's a matter of fact. Man. I tried to play the theatrics. I tried to figure my way out of that corner, but you put me in the box, and now I got to find my way out. They're not there, and they ain't coming. I'm sorry. Here's the real issue that Oklahoma's facing right now when you talk about defensive tackles specifically. And this is another reason why I wanted to buy myself a little bit of time, because this is a really touchy subject, and I think it's something really interesting to dive into. Oklahoma's making its living right now off of offering JUCO defensive tackles and defensive line. And obviously you've seen them extend offers to Isaiah Coe, the number one JUCO defensive tackle of this cycle,
right.
Another one out of Eastern Mississippi. They get the two top ones in last year, and normally a lot of programs would be pretty happy about doing so, right? But right now, I mean, you see a JUCO offer go out to a defensive tackle, and fans wearing Crimson Cream lose their freaking minds because they do not understand why there is not a incoming freshman caliber defensive tackle that will show any interest in the Oklahoma Sooners. That, to me, is where the quote-unquote JUCO defensive tackles are in Oklahoma's 2021 recruiting class. They're going to have to be at the JUCO level until this thing gets some sort of standing, right? I mean, until Alex Grinch has that reputation built, I don't see a situation where top-tier JUCO or non-JUCO defensive tackles really take this thing seriously and continuously commit. I think you had some really good things play out with Perrion and Josh Ellison last year, but keep in mind, I mean, there was a point there where Perrion was not a done deal, and there was also a point where Josh Ellison seemed almost like a Texas A&M lock. And so for Oklahoma to end up with both of those, it kind of played out the way that not your typical recruiting race would. I know it's hard to say, but for me, you're not going to see 2021 JUCO defensive tackles as just a supplementary aspect of these recruiting classes. I think JUCO defensive tackles are where you're going to get those guys, and it's going to be where they are almost specifically coming from until Alex Grinch's reputation becomes fortified.
What we're saying is a lot of y'all need to buy season tickets to Hines Community College, Jones Community College, Butler Community College, Bland Community College, East Mississippi Community College. I'm just saying, that's what we really getting at is you might want to go out there to the mud.
Either.
Nah, I think you can get in there pretty cheap, especially right now, Anyway, now jokes aside, I put you in that spot knowing the answer is some version of what you said, but I do appreciate you just being blatant about it. They're not there because it's the truth. And the idea that they would be there is, for me, kind of stupid because there aren't that many. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and say this. There are more quality quarterbacks than there are quality defensive tackle recruits, period. And the problem is you need two of them for every one quarterback that you have. So you got to take these defensive ends and you got to blow them up. You remember Chuka and Dulaway? Chuka was 260 pounds and a speed rusher. It was so hurting that they turned that man into a 290-pound zero. Like, that's what you're going to have to do. It's going to be, hey, you better hope Marcus Hicks develops. You saw Jalen Redmond got a little bit fat, and that's okay because guess what? My man was pretty good at playing inside, and that's where you're going to need him to play inside. Your defensive tackles are going to be your ends that overdevelop, right? Where they just put them in front of the training table and say, eat, and they hope that they keep their quickness, right? Because that was the thing about Neville Gallimore that was so cool to watch is once he was able to just get another set of hands on that line of scrimmage, he was able to do more work. And that's what it's going to have to be. And that's one of the reasons why we believe in this defensive scheme that Grinch wants to throw out there. So do you have a take on Kendall Daniels and Christian Leary? And I know that Daniels gave people a scare because he tweeted something. And shout to Brandon who ran that down. But I looked at that tweet and I kept scrolling. But apparently my man says something, just a phrase, and people freaking out. And I believe the phrase was, well, that changed. And I'm like, okay, scroll. Other people think it's got something to do with recruiting because apparently if you're a recruit, you only show up to tweet about recruiting.
Yeah.
Nah, man. I mean,
yeah,
it could be anything, right? And that was, I don't know. I think people are reaching because they're scared. And they're scared because the kids that they all want are committing elsewhere, which is just part of the game, right?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously these tweets that have gone around, especially in the day and age where we live of silent commitment and cliffhanger tweets and misdirecting social media stances, anything can set a fire. And when he put it out, I didn't put much stock in it either. I'm with you. But then I also started to piece together the puzzle of, okay, he tweets this out at X time, then Jansen Dunn tweets this out at X time, and Lincoln Riley. And so maybe I'm putting all of this together, and I'm thinking, okay, he's got a problem maybe with defensive spots. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out why there's so much worry. And the bottom line for me is I cannot. I mean, I still think this thing is way too early to really fret about. I think when you're talking specifically about Christian Leary and Kendall Daniels, I know Leary has been a part of that. I don't know what to call it, the hot dog squad, whatever you want to, the grill out crew that keeps tweeting out that dang emoji between Caleb Williams and Mario Williams and him. But I mean,
I was just gonna say I broke my rule this one time about like tweeting at recruits because like usually I'm just in we talk at DMs, right? But I couldn't help it. I had to go sandwich when my man put out hot dog. I just had to, and I hope I hope he giggled because like. He said hot dog, I replied with sandwich, and I went about my business, you know, because I just thought it was funny. But yeah.
I mean, hey, providing some comedic relief to the situation, which I think is very well appreciated these days. That said, the hot dog is not a sandwich, but I digress. I will say this. I think when you talk about those two, I still feel like Kendall Daniels, the race is still wide open. I mean, anyone wants to assume that he's going somewhere right now, just too far-fetched for me. He's got Clemson, he's got Alabama, he's got the in-state Oklahoma Sooners. I mean, that dude's got everything ahead of him. Don't panic. As far as Christian Leary, as long as he's in a squad with the number one quarterback and one of the top wide receivers, both in favor of the Oklahoma Sooners, I wouldn't put much pressure on myself either if I were a fan and wanting to get those three in the bucket. So, look, man, we're living in different times, and I know that it's easy to get worked up with social media because that's really one of the few things we have to look at. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that hit the panic button on any of those two that we're talking about because, again, you just really have a hard time believing that anything drastic is going to take place while we're basically in a recruiting shutdown.
That is Colin Kennedy. Follow him on the Twitters at @CKennedy247. We will talk a couple of times this week as it is NFL draft week, and my man has been working on his mock draft. It's going to drop later this week. We'll talk about it here on the podcast, and we'll follow all the happenings and goings on. I can't wait for this virtual draft because the general managers don't know how to use technology. Colin, I appreciate you, man.
Always fun, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, man. See ya.